Mr. Kohli was vulnerable because of his age, although I bear in mind that his age was a factor which I took into account when deciding how blameworthy what you did was. 4, you decided in advance that you would be hostile to Mr. Kohli. That's why you put your balaclava on. 5, what you did to Mr. Kohli was not one single attack, which you immediately regretted, but was in 2 separate violent outbursts. 6, you used a slider as a weapon, but I bear in mind having seen that it was a flimsy item, which when used was more humiliating than dangerous. 7, as between you and D2, you took the lead in her presence, playing up to her and to the camera on her mobile phone. Turning now to the mitigating features. 1, you have no previous convictions. 2, despite some earlier bad reports about your behaviour in the children's home, more recently you are said to have behaved positively and well. You've applied yourself to your studies and have been helpful to the other children. 3, you have issues with your mental health which are set out in detail in the pre-sentence report, which I have read. 4, your life at home has not given you the best start. Your mother has supported you, but there have been many issues which are again detailed in the pre-sentence report and which I have fully considered. I am unable to give much weight to what is said about your remorse. I'm sure you regret that Mr. Kohli died because of what you did to him, but you still say it wasn't your fault. It was your fault, and the sooner you realise this, the better. Had you been an adult, even concentrating as I must on your personal circumstances, the balance of aggravating and mitigating features would have resulted in an increase from the starting point to 14 years custody. I reduced this to 7 years to reflect your age and level of maturity and in conformity with the sentencing guideline. You'll get credit for the time you've already spent in custody. This is one of those rare cases in which long-term detention is the only way to deal with you. A community order would simply not begin to reflect the seriousness of what you did. I now turn to D2. I have to consider the same guidelines as I did with D1. In your case, I consider that your offending fell into the medium category of culpability. I intended that Mr. Kohli should suffer some harm, but not that D1 should attack him with the force which he used near to the exit of the park. You continued to film what happened after Mr. Kohli had been forced to the ground and humiliated. It was obvious to you that if you stayed around and continued to film, then D1 was liable to cause Mr. Kohli at least some further harm, and that you would be encouraging him to do that. I am not, however, sure that you expected D1 to attack Mr. Kohli with anything like the level of violence that he did when he lost his temper and punched and kicked him. You did not play the leading role in the incident, but yours was not a minor part. With respect to the aggravating features, 1, I refer again to the severe pain caused to Mr. Kohli caused by his injuries. 2, Mr. Kohli was a vulnerable elderly man, which must have been obvious to you even at your age. 3, you actively encouraged D1 to carry on by filming him and remaining close at hand, even after his first humiliating attack. Although what you did was very serious in some important ways, it was not as serious as D1. You did not at any stage hurt Mr. Kohli directly, and I am sure that you didn't foresee the violence of the attack which D1 carried out at him towards the end. I do not find that your involvement was because of Mr. Kohli's race. The evidence about this was limited to D1. In mitigation, I've taken into account everything set out in the pre-sentence report, and what has been said and written on your behalf by your barristers. And it can be said, 1, you have no previous convictions. 2, you've had a troubled upbringing. 3, people who know who you are and what you did have given you a very hard time since September of last year. 4, you are assessed as presenting a low risk of committing further offences. 5, you have committed no further offences whilst on bail for this offence since last September. Had you been an adult, I find that the starting point under the manslaughter guideline, balancing out the aggravating and circumstances, would have been 8 years. However, under the guideline, your age, maturity and personal circumstances must be given very close attention. You were only 12 at the time of the incident and considerably younger than D1. I find that you were as grown up as your age of 12 would suggest, no more and no less. The broad guidance is that a sentence of less than half of that appropriate for an adult would be right. Bearing in mind that a custodial sentence in these circumstances would be short, but liable to have a very severe impact on your education and chances of rehabilitation, I'm satisfied that a short custodial sentence would do more harm than good in your case. I consider that a youth rehabilitation order of 3 years is required, that is the maximum, with a supervision requirement for the same period. You'll have to do a 60-day activity requirement, which will include community work. You'll be the subject of an electronically monitored curfew between 7 o'clock at night and 7 o'clock in the morning for a period of 6 months. And if you don't follow any of those requirements, you're liable to be brought back to the Crown Court to be dealt with. Those are the circumstances and those are the sentences I pass.